Welcome to Channel Security Secrets. I'm Lou Raban. On this show, we expose the untold secrets and critical insights from the people shaping the future of cybersecurity sales in the Trusted Advisor channel. If you're looking to up your game around selling security, stick around. Channel Security Secrets is brought to you by Cyber Defense Group, on a mission to shift cybersecurity from reactive to resilient.
There's not a lot of education and training. I haven't met hardly any members in the channel that are supplier focused that have had any sort of formal onboarding or training on what the channel is. So it's people who have come in and found a good mentor and have taken them under the wing and showed them how to do it. But what that's caused is it's very, very difficult to come into the channel with the huge expectations, because channel managers are expensive, channel programs are expensive, and there needs to be immediate results, but we don't have the data. And so you get an 8 or 9 month ramp. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know that you have stuff coming in the pipe, and there's very little tolerance for failure before they start churning over. And so being able to bring in some new fresh blood, teach them how to run a channel program, I think will do wonders for the trusted advisor. Having somebody here's the biggest eye opener for me in the last couple months. I have interviewed now about 10 field sales rep on the TSD side and about 10 trusted advisors. And I asked them, if you could pinpoint the single thing that makes a channel manager successful or not, what is it? And all of them have said they follow up. That's simple. They follow up. Like, that's the minimum barrier to entry. And if that's the minimum barrier to entry, it tells me that there's just not enough people knowing how to do this particular job. Yeah, when you go in and your value prop or your value pitch is, hey, I know all things technical, and then all of a sudden you ask a question and you can't answer basic responses, it puts you in kind of a weird position. And so I think there are different ways of selling it where you don't have to get into those crazy conversations or lose your value based on the fact that you can't answer questions, right? Really, really, I think a trusted advisor job is to be a connector into the ecosystem and find the right resources and help them overcome and understand the technology and bring in the right products and the right people at the right time to answer the right questions to get the problems fixed. I think what trusted advisors in the channel does really well is it translates, right? So SaaS and telco and cyber providers have a product. You mentioned EDR, MDR, all of those types of things. We talk about ransomware and whatever other problems there are out there. Business owners don't know what EDR is. They're never going to come up to you, especially on the small business side, and say, I need an EDR solution, or hey, I need an MDR solution, or hey, do you have a SOAR or SOC? They're not going to ask those questions. They're going to say, hey, I have real concerns that competitors or bad actors or somebody's going to come in and cause issues to my business. How do I make sure that doesn't happen? And if you don't know how to translate those conversations from one side to the other, then it's going to be hard for you to sell it.
Yeah. So the solution would be, other than educating themselves, because they may already, have limited time or not the interest to really get deep into cybersecurity. What I'm hearing you say is that they can say, listen, not my area of expertise, but I know I got a guy or I got someone, kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you got a guy is perfect, but you also have to know where your guy is.
Yeah, guy being a vendor or supplier.
Yeah, gal. Like, let's not be sexist, right? There's plenty of really smart people on both sides of that fence.
Yeah.
But, and then you have to know enough about the technology. And I think where our industry could do better is when we go to events, instead of suppliers, going to an event and saying, hey, I paid 20 grand to be here. I paid 10 grand to be here. So I'm just going to throw a commercial at you. It's, hey, let's sit down and talk about the product, what pain points it solves, how to identify the opportunities to capture the attentions of the trusted advisors and those that want to lean in and find or have customers or have verticals they go after that would be great for the cyber product, to sit down with those suppliers, and then suppliers have to create better sales enablement tools. And sales enablement tools aren't email campaigns. Sometimes they're educational tracks. Sometimes they're certifications. Sometimes they're, things to help the trusted advisor really grasp the concepts of the things you're trying to fix.
Like, what's your engagement model? How do you, approach, what does it look like?
Yeah. So typically what I get is there's such a huge gold rush of suppliers who are wanting to get into the channel. So a lot of the times I get a phone call or an email and say, hey, so-and-so told me to reach out to you. I want to get into the channel. And the first thing I said is, why do you want to get into the channel? And they say, well, I have this one guy who sells my product and he usually sells more than my entire direct sales team. And when I asked him, how do I find more people like you? Their answer is, oh, you have to get into the channel. And then they go, what's the channel? Right. So it's usually an education and training of the model, right? Evergreen commissions, you need resources, sales enablement, you need a product that makes sense. Here's the category. So there's a whole training around what the channel model is. And then it's building some of the groundwork. It's, hey, I went out after my time at Teleris when I recognized there was a major pain point on the supplier side. And I looked for a methodology for indirect sales models. You can go out and you can do challenger sales, and there's hundreds of different sales methodologies and sales models. But I couldn't find a single place that had an indirect sales model, a sales through or sales with motion model. And so the first thing I did, I created it. I created a Channel 2.0 methodology that kind of lays out who's responsible for what along the way. And where I think most people go wrong is they don't realize that the suppliers have two funnels. You have a partner funnel, and if and only then, after you sell those people, do you get access to the customer pipeline. And so you got to make sure that that experience on the partner side is a pleasant experience, because if you don't do a good job of selling them, who are professional salespeople and typically have shown themselves to be very well, they're really good salespeople. They know good salespeople. If you show up and you don't show that you're an efficient salesperson, you don't follow up, you don't know your products, you don't know how to ask good discovery call questions, you don't even care about their business, there's no way they're going to give you access to trusted relationships that they've had for a year. So, right, showing up the best you can as a salesperson to them to help them, only then do you get access. So building that indirect sales model, and then I just come in and I build the processes. So you have the methodology, you have the processes, and then you have the training. But more importantly, we help them with their messaging about their product, help them adjust their product if it's not right, and help them adjust their messaging if it's not right.
Yeah, we've learned that lesson the hard way. I mean, this is, again, just super, you cannot, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier about being a salesperson. Show up day one with a corporate card, golf clubs, and a couple people to call. That's only going to get you so far. Coming into the channel, just like, we've got a great product, that I've learned the hard way that if you build it, they will not come. You got to have a process,
TAs have spent their whole lives building their business on trust. Their customers know what they need, trust them. If they go in with cyber and the TA itself doesn't understand cyber tremendously, can't answer all their questions, they literally believe it's going to put them at a disadvantage and maybe make them look maybe not as high level as they are known for whatever they do. And I think that's wrong. I think you can go in and say, hey, cyber is where everything's going. Everything we do for you has got to be wrapped around security. Look, I am not, an expert when it comes to this, but we have some great people behind us. Let's start the discussion. What are you using for X? What are you doing for Y? And let's start the discussion and then bring in experts. Like nobody expects a one-man show. Nobody just wants Paul McCartney. I think everybody just wants the Beatles, right? We definitely want balance. So I'd like to hear from you and what you're seeing the same thing. I think they just need to get started and know they got backup from their partners and from the TSDs.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we tell them. I mean, I think fear has a lot to do with it, right? Like something they haven't sold before. Cyber can be a black box. There's, a billion talking heads out there now that pretend to be experts, and maybe 0.01% actually are. And so, there's an element of intimidation, I think, where it's like, hey, if I open my mouth about this, they're going to start asking questions, and I don't know the answers out of my depth. So it's easier to sell the stuff that they've been selling. But to your point, we say, hey, that's the time to say, bring in the experts. You're not expected to know. Cyber is a complicated topic. It can be overwhelming. And the customers shouldn't expect the trusted advisors to be the experts necessarily. They should expect them to be able to get the answers from the experts. So I think being comfortable saying, I don't know, but I got a guy. That's the way Stefan Samoroff has explained it to me. I got a guy. That's where the TA should go with that.
And by the way, the channel is a tough place. If you mess up, it's hard to recover. If you just do the right thing, even when things go bad, like we're all in tech breaks down once in a while, right? There's bugs. Long as you recover and you know how to treat people who need that support and you get through it, it's easy to keep your reputation going. If not, it's not, right? And that might never come back.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a small world in tech, smaller world in cybersecurity, and an even smaller, tighter world in the channel. So I think you're spot on.
Cyber's agnostic to industry, location, and size. That means there isn't a client or a prospect on the planet who doesn't have to address cyber in some shape, form, or fashion. And if anyone ever told someone getting into this space, 100%, I know it all, I have one piece of advice. I want you to run fast as you can the opposite direction, because that isn't true. And even if it happened to be true, before the sentence is complete, it won't be true. That's the evolutionary and expansive way that the threats are evolving. And that's one of the reasons there's the number of ecosystem partners that I have, the depth and breadth of that. And so lean into those relationships. Again, my advice would be to do it relationship-wise. Get to know your partners that are going to be there with you and articulate things that raise awareness to the prospects and clients that you're going to see. If you've already got a relationship with them, there's a level of trust there. And, I like to think about things. Can we explore this? And often there's some great thought leadership that can be brought by a partner if you're in the channel, and allow that. And if you trust them and have a relationship with them, you know the right ones.
Yeah. So kick that door open. That's what we say. We say you don't have to have the conversation, just know the right questions to ask. And, which is, what are you doing right now? Do you feel comfortable with your cyber posture? What are some of the questions you ask to kind of, scrape up, break loose some of those opportunities?
Yeah. I often ask them, I say, how do you feel about cyber in their silence? So it's like, how about we try to remove the we don't know what we don't know from the equation? And that's usually a great starting spot. I ask them things like, well, what's your roadmap? And again, if you hear crickets, go, well, let's work on what it might look like to create a roadmap. And if they have one, well, where are you? Because it's often in the early days of a journey with cyber, there's this, I've checked those boxes now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And this is a journey, and the journey is the destination. And I often have the privilege of working closely with a significant insurance brokerage group. And so for their perspective, when you get around to things like cyber insurance, there's boxes to check. And the mantra was, can I check those boxes? And yet the truth is, as much as they really need that policy in their drawer, you don't want to ever pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the be all end all. And I would advise folks that would come back and say things like, I'm in the cloud, I'm fine. I've got cyber insurance, I'm fine. I've got third parties that handle that. There's some stats that will raise your eyebrows around how often either internal humans are doing this or a supplier or a vendor is a cause. And so, it's again, there is no one size fits all, and it's evolving and ongoing. Frankly, I would say it's been the number one business risk, and maybe AI may bump it for a year or two, but still cybersecurity rides over the top of that.
If a vendor is like, yep, we can solve all your problems, just sign on the dotted line, that's definitely, run, be afraid. But also for TAs that are trying to get into the channel, bringing in the experts and then trying to figure out what will speak to the, how you're going to get the customer to start to speak about their cyber program and feel comfortable about it.
Yes. And often ask for just one thing that they might need,
Right.
The idea of the magnitude of cyber across the platform of risk, discovering where they are in a roadmap and where they are on their journey and understanding how their budget and things interact with that journey. Often you can find an opportunity to be another set of eyes.
Yep.
Or perhaps one of your partners is willing to maybe do a courtesy review just to give them some awareness. And that often leads to, there's some things here that have been discovered. Would you like some help in addressing them?
Yeah. As much as it's a red flag for vendors to be like, we can solve all of your problems, it's also a red flag for a customer to say, hey, we have cyber covered, because, we both know no one has cyber fully covered, even at the highest, especially at the highest levels of spend and headcount and all of that.
I like to always come about conversations with the prospect of, let's do some proactive measures and let's build that stack, if you will, of proactive measures. Really what we're trying to do is harden the target so that at least at some level, there's going to be less interest in your infrastructure and your company if you look to be a harder target. And so, try to reframe that from being fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Let's raise some awareness. Let's talk about what's possible. There's some very no cost and very low cost things that start the journey going. And that's one of the things I have found in trying to build trust is just to give some courtesy advisory to folks that I don't know what I don't know. And where do I start? And if you already have a relationship with an organization and you can bring some expertise to bear either through their channel or if you have that already, I would say that's like spreading broadcasting seed.
One of the first lessons that I learned was that when I used to work at a VAR, the way that you viewed security was very different. They essentially shoved one MDR solution in front of us, one SOC as a service solution, and said, this is security, top to bottom, this is cybersecurity. And I think that part of just being continually curious, you start to understand that security is achieved through defense in depth. There's a lot of layers to it, and there's a lot of different things that have to work well together. And starting to understand that and understand who exists in the marketplace and how they feed into each other is important for making any sort of recommendation to any size of company.
So understanding the landscape, essentially.
Yeah, like just understanding who exists, how do they compare, recommending people meet with up and coming vendors all the time, because there's a lot of interesting point solutions that might fly under your radar. But in terms of if you're going to be selling to some sort of security executive and you want to push this one specific managed detection and response company, you should be prepared to talk about how they compare to the other 10 options, or even if you can just reference the top 5 other ones that maybe if they're more well known than the one you're pushing, that will build credibility for you with these security leaders that you're meeting with, because chances are they've probably met with multiple vendors And if your whole view of security is siloed to this one vendor's opinion of it, you might not give that air of credibility when speaking with a leader.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where you, as someone who's been selling security for a while, understands it really well. What about, in this channel, there's a lot of trust advisors that are just getting into security. So how do you suggest that they maybe operate in a way that they may not actually understand the differences between all of the MDR vendors?
I would say first, one thing that was helpful for me is find a champion and or mentor that is in the security space. Start to understand their opinions on certain vendors, why, what has their experience has been. Start to survey some of your other customers and relationships that you have. What do they think of who exists in the industry? What has their experience been implementing people, et cetera? I think one thing that a lot of people fail to consider is that also the personality type of people in security is often different than if you're selling telecom or contact center or many of the other realms of technology that you have access to if you're an agent within the channel. And so blunt candor and the willingness to say, I don't know to certain things rather than pretending like you do know, I think also goes a long way. Like trust is your currency in security and you can lose it very quickly.
Any other advice you give to someone listening?
Yeah, I would say that one thing that you definitely need to make sure to do, and that will start to elevate how much the customer trusts you, is understanding what is their role within the organization. Because as you move up market, the political landscape and who reports to who gets along with who's in charge of what, gets to be a bigger level of consideration. And so understanding, are you working with the decision maker who at this point in his career is non-technical versus are you meeting with someone who's leading the architecture design versus someone who's the hands-on keyboard analyst trying to stop threats? What's important to them and how you make them a champion within their own organization is going to be a bit different. So I think that once again, your primary goal, and this comes back to 3 trees, honestly, our mission statement being empower leaders, go out and figure out how to empower your champion. At the end of the day, they're owning the risk, not you. Their butt's on the line, not you. You need to make sure that you understand how are they scored within their organization, what's really the objective and impact of this project, and what resources do you have at your your disposal to make them look like a hero. And really, if you can consider, consistently bring them wins that help them accomplish their vision and be that kind of enabler, that's how you build the level of trust to where maybe, there's a lot more job hopping these days and a lot more people float between companies. And you want to make sure that you've done such a good job for them that you're clearly going to be there for their first call when they go to a new spot. And I think that focusing on how you empower them is a good way to do that.
I tell our sales folks all the time, we're a technology company, but guess what? We don't sell technology. We align a better way to do things with time. At the end of the day, if you just think that, life just becomes a whole lot better. Because now you're just starting to think to yourself, well, how can I just get in front of that person and tell him that there's a better way without actually talking security? There are so many questions that you can ask that have nothing to do with security. How fast can you detect or look at something when it happens? And then how fast do you guys fix it? When something breaks, how fast do you fix it? Right? I mean, when a cyber attack happens and it's analyzed, how do you actually detect? And how do you remediate? And then, without getting too much into the weeds, being a non-cyber security background, but having been involved in security all the time, just understanding that remediation is the difference maker. MDR, manage, detect, respond. That's sort of a foundation, right? One of them. Lou, please, you could take the mic. You have the mic.
Yeah. Listen, with the remediation, MDR is not typically remediation. They're bubbling up alerts, but it is a part of remediation when someone says, I don't even monitor my network, then you would put an MDR provider in. And that's usually the entry point for the, a lot of TAs. It's probably one of the easier things to sell in the sense that everyone needs it. There's a lot of good solutions out there that you can recommend. So MDR is usually like the starting point for security for TAs that are either trusted advisors or groups that are getting into it. But yeah, it's one of many things. It really depends on the maturity of the company and things like that, right? So it depends on how the organizations are looking at security too. What's the driver? I don't know if you're having those conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Getting to those conversations, I mean, we love to talk about those conversations, and I love to talk about them, right? But getting to them, sometimes it's hard because these people are getting hit every which way. But absolutely. I mean, understanding what are their goals for that quarter? What are they trying to solve for? Are they trying to automate more? Are they trying to instill more AI? Everybody now has some sort of AI booster or plug. What are you trying to achieve? What are security, initiatives that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, for anybody that's coming in, calling on somebody, a third-party penetration testing is always sort of, well, hey, we're fine. We're okay. Great. Let's test it. When was the last time you actually had a third party just test it? Oh, we just had somebody test it the other day. Great. Let's test it again. This is what's happening. Consistent hacks. And if we find something, perhaps we can have a conversation further after that.
Yeah.
You never know.
When you said previously that, you don't sell security, you're not selling that. You're selling almost like peace of mind. Is that where you were going with that? Or time you had mentioned, but like tell me more about that.
We're selling a better way to really look at things to match to their outcomes. I like to look at our sales motion as a vendor being for 10 years, have 500 different partners. There's so many different ways to have a conversation with the customer. I like to look at those conversations like an octopus and tentacles just hanging out and putting that out there and asking, what are you working on? And what are you trying to achieve? Well, what do you sell? We really align better ways to do things with technology. That's why we're trying to understand, what are you actually trying to solve for? And then from there, we let the conversation take us. And certainly peace of mind, lower time, right sizing, having a better security program. Many times, I think the mistake is over-investing in the whole prevention. But then what about, like we were just saying earlier, what happens after you get hacked? What kind of redundancies have you actually put in place? And what have you invested into that? And how have you actually looked at recycling or cycling back and learning so it doesn't happen again? And what are some realistic goals that you have in mind?
That's a wrap for this episode of Channel Security Secrets. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes, guest info, and more episodes, visit us at channelsecuritysecrets.com. Channel Security Secrets is sponsored by Cyber Defense Group. When it comes to protecting your business, don't settle for reactive. Partner with experts who build resilience from the ground up.